our period of time, we had a lot of involvement of parents. And as a result, several of those parents were made honorary members. Brad's father was one, and my father was another, which was highly significant, especially to my father, who had only gone through the 8th grade. So TKE affects lots of us with our education, our development, and certainly it's important to mention some of the parents in the early days. Our next speaker is Jon Kerezy. John's a class of 77, quite active on campus when he was here. In the fraternity, he's editor of The Bachelor. He's had an interesting career, at least to me it's been interesting. He had worked for a United States Senator for a while. He's been in communications. He now teaches communications at Cuyahoga Community College in Ohio. And I'm happy to welcome my friend Jon Kerezy to come and give us some insights on the latter part of the 1970s.
Thanks, John. I'm looking forward to that insight, and I also want to put Luke on standby to let you know I have something for you. And I'm going to ask every Alpha alumni who's here tonight to follow my lead, not that moment in time, but later on when I get there. And when I get there, it'll be pretty obvious to you. Before I begin, a couple things. I have to thank a lot of my era colleagues, John Miller, Ted Ferguson, Steve Hyman, and especially, from my perspective, the Mr. Teak of our era, Gino King, for giving me stories and anecdotes that I'm sharing with you. So most of the material tonight is borrowed. But before I begin, I want you to think about the bond that brings us here tonight. We have people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe a little older than that still. We have people from California, Florida, Minnesota, Tennessee, New Jersey, Colorado, and a few other states. They're here because of that fraternity bond, that fraternity for life, as John talked about. And that's what makes tonight so special. A lot of other fraternities can have parties and anniversaries, but it won't be because of how that fraternity was founded and how strongly the men over the decades have believed in that bond. I think that's a very important thing to remember when we start out. And when we start out, we have to realize that we're at Wabash. And as all Wabash men know, right, young guys, what does Wabash try to do? 4 things. Somebody want to help me with them? Think critically, act responsibly, lead effectively, live humanely. 4. Our fraternity has 3: charity, esteem, and love. Today I'm only going to talk about two key points: phenomenally successful and feeding each other. Phenomenally successful and feeding each other. In my opinion, those 2 things kind of pretty much summarize what was going on with the TKE chapter during most of the 1970s. As my predecessor said, we had nearly a full house. Around 1972, 1973, we had about 64, 65 people. It became over full during that period of time. We had way more than 72. At one point, we had about 80 people at the chapter. We had married guys living off campus and seniors living off campus that came to our chapter meetings and participated in the chapter organization. When Gino King's class graduated in 1978, the book showed over $15,000 in the bank at the chapter house on South Grand Avenue, right here in town. We were super strong academically during that period. There were several times when we were the #1 living unit on campus, and almost all the time we were in the top 3 in terms of what we were doing in the house. The class of 1979, 1/3 of it was either magna cum laude, summa cum laude, or cum laude. Phenomenal group of people from our thing in that class. More than a dozen graduates of this era went on to careers in law, medicine, and other what I call highly important professions. Steve Hyman, John Miller, Frank Selke, Fred Lane, Gary Ayers, Matt Winnikin, Richard Pogue, Ted Ferguson, Gary Sekema, Eric McAuliffe, Steve Nelson. Again, just to name some of them. There are many, many others. Others in phenomenal leadership positions in other professions, for example, Tom Selke teaching at Purdue, Dave Pope, Dan Murad, Brad Sternberg, Mike Bellifer, Steve Lau, my pledge son, who's now the chaplain at IU Hospital in Port, for example. Guys that really took on amazing leadership positions. At least 2 years in a row, and it might have been more than that, our fraternity defeated the entire college in intramural cross country. Our score was better than the entire college in that event. We won the first ever intramural bicycle event on campus. We defeated the Phi Gams in football one year, and they were crying after that happened. One year, a couple of our guys made their way down to Greencastle with some gasoline and other flammable liquids in the trunk of the car, and this mysterious huge letter W appeared at the football field at Blackstock Stadium. And for added measure, some fraternity composites just mysteriously disappeared at the very same time. Talk about service. In that era, the Teeks were the leaders in the campus on service. The APO service fraternity, more than half of the members in any given year were people from Tau Kappa Epsilon, and phenomenal service. There's a United Way effort in town called Muffy. It's starting up again right now, and many of the leading elements on our campus were Tau Kappa Epsilon members who were helping doing that fundraising drive. And by the way, guys in the house today, I have a message for you from the vice president of the local chapter of Habitat for Humanity. He was extremely impressed that 24 of you turned out last weekend on Service Day to help. Gino in the back was the first ever president of the Wabash Student Alumni Association. We were well represented in sports. Obviously, track and cross country, we did phenomenally well. My classmate in the back, Greg Buzzard, was a defensive back starter for a couple of years on the football team. Greg, I remember our senior year, you had a pretty tough assignment against St. Joe's. There was an All-American defensive wide receiver that Buzzy had to cover, and that guy didn't catch a single pass all day. But Buzzy got an interception, and we won the football game 16-10. We had a guy named Matthew Winnikin, All-American in cross-country and track, finalist for a Rhodes Scholar. And I could go on and on and on about some of the great things that we did during that era. But one of the reasons why we were so good, in my opinion, is that we were feeding each other. This was a fraternity house that had really kind of mastered the understanding of diversity, and also at the same time the idea of inclusion, because we had a wild and wacky bunch of guys in the Teak House back then. But we all got along well, and we helped each other succeed. I'll give you an example. There was a spur-of-the-moment holiday called Elmore Day. And for some strange reason, all the Elmore Day signs kind of disappeared around the campus, and the radio station had said the only one that's left is the one up on top of the theater that said it's Elmore Day. And two guys, Dave Pope and John Miller, took it upon themselves. One of them had the keys. Went over to Ball Theater, and next thing you know, that sign is down. And they deposited that sign at the radio station. Those guys and another fraternity brother went on trial once because they actually picked Honors Weekend to walk out. But they didn't just leave town. They actually figured out a way to shut off the electricity, both on the Friday and Saturday of Honors Weekend. Fortunately, we survived the there was a guy in the house named Vic Melchior, and Vic was the master of practical jokes. He took a garbage bag and filled it up with all the kind of things you would normally fill in a garbage bag, and then put a couple of M80s in that garbage bag, and waited until about midnight, 12:30 in the morning, went over to the Fidel house, and lit the fuse in their kitchen. He's just warming up, guys. He then ran out the front of the Fidel house to draw attention, and went through the Kappa Sig house next door. So at the next interfraternity council meeting, our chapter president, Steve Hyman, is sitting through that perfectly straight face as the Fidels complain about what the Kappa Sigs did. But on the brighter side, maybe I should say more serious side, one of Wabash's greatest presidents during this time, Thaddeus Seymour, had announced that he was resigning. And in his last year, several of the fraternities had asked him to become an honorary member. So if Thad Seymour could have chosen any one of several of the fraternities, he became an honorary member of Tau Kappa Epsilon. I could go on and on about There was a guy in our fraternity named Steve Zeider, who was the chapter president. He also was the house manager for the Humanities Center for the ball theater. And he recruited a group of guys from the house to basically serve as ushers for all of the plays. And we had guys in the play, but we didn't have to do that. We had a handful of guys, and Bill Cadis was one of them. Eric Tack comes to mind. Fred Lane comes to mind, who were in the Glee Club. And they were kind of the heart and soul of that organization. The Chess Club, WNDY, The Bachelor. Ken Williams in the back did cartoons for The Bachelor as a freshman on campus. We had people in positions of authority and leadership all over the college, and it was in part because we were feeding each other. We won the Penn Hill Games in the spring of 1978. And then in 77, that fall, we had a great celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Carnet Club, and many of those guys from 1927, 28 came back and participated in that. Frank Selke, what a brain, perfect grade point average, just 4 years at Wabash. He was also the captain of our ice ball throwing team. Some of you might remember the old ice machine there in the kitchen. And that reminds me also that Vic and Ed Menzo had devised this ingenious system of launching water balloons from the courtyard of that chapter house and naming them at completely unsuspecting pedestrians going up and down South Grand Avenue. We had several mock trials. We put our Preakness, Steve Hyman on trial, and many other people, and all I can tell you about those is those were an entirely great class. Finally, some of these guys in 1982 developed our nationally certified Alpha Alpha Tau Kappa Epsilon Alumni Association, which has striven for many years to keep our alumni informed about the chapter's activities and sponsoring events. John said, also when you talk about what it means to you. I was a kid from Cleveland, grew up in a lower middle class family, first person from my family, my generation to make it to college. And of all places to go, I chose Wabash. I was attracted to Tau Kappa Epsilon for many of the very same reasons that the guys in that 1962 group talked about yesterday. Diversity, inclusion, treating everybody equally, irrespective of race, creed. That meant a lot to me because I was on a campus where I was definitely different. I had no idea what corn detasseling was when I got here. Not at all. This fraternity accepted me, supported me, encouraged me, gave me an opportunity to develop and grow. And that's why I love this place with all my heart for the rest of my life. Exceptional men. Men who are leaders. Men who are characters. Great characters. That's what comes to my mind when we talk about Tau Kappa Epsilon. And when I talk about feeding each other, it's not just me. I mean, that's kind of scriptural, right? You might not believe, but in Matthew 25, Jesus talks about, I was in prison and you visited me. I was naked and you clothed me. Please don't be naked at Wabash. Not a good idea. And when I was hungry, you fed me. Well, at Tau Kappa Epsilon, we feed each other. We worked really hard in that era to feed each other and help everybody succeed. It was that bond, in my opinion, that made that success so phenomenal. And the reason I want to stress all this is, for those of you that are alums, I'm going to issue a real small challenge to you. Luke, would you come on up? This is our current chapter president, Luke. Luke, this is my business card. You have it. I want to mentor one of the young guys out there. I want to help them succeed. And guys, I want you to do the exact same thing. My little challenge to you is, don't just sit on the sidelines after tonight and say, gee, wasn't this a great event? All right, especially those of you that are at or near retirement. Take a little bit of time, effort, and energy to get to know one current member of Alpha Alpha a bit better and invest in time in helping that person succeed. Dr. Z, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Send in the bell.
All right. I'm getting the high sign, so the next contestant's coming up. But as you know, I live in Cleveland. If anything brings you that way, you got Rock and Roll Hall of Fame tickets on me. I'd love to have you there. You got a place to stay. And remember, guys, keep feeding each other.
Our next speaker is Mike Rader's class of '85. Mike is the Dean of Students of Wabash College, and he may be interested in some of these tales, the garbage bags and M80s, et cetera, et cetera. I've actually gotten to know Mike a through alumni circles when he was in Indianapolis, and I was really excited when he became the Dean of Students. We're really lucky to have Mike as the Dean of Students at this college. I was talking to a friend of mine in the class in 1966, not a teak, and he said, you know, Mike Raiders is no Dean Moore. And I said, yes, that may be true, but Dean Moore couldn't be Dean Moore in today's world. And I'm going to add to that statement, Dean Moore couldn't be Mike Raiders. The difficulties and challenges of being a Dean of Students in a college that trusted students a lot, is not anything that we should ever take for granted. And Mike is a fraternity guy, and I know he has good feelings for the Teaks, but he has good feelings for all the fraternities, and he has good feelings for independence. I know that because we have, one way I know that, we have a group called Wabash Fraternity Advisors, which is the collaborative group of fraternity advisors of all the fraternities. I think we're the only college in the country that has such an organization, and Mike comes to our meetings, and it's very collaborative. And so I know that he's interested in all the students